Hey everybody, this is Rex Bear with Leak Project. It is January 20th, 2017. I got the Celestron NexStar telescope right outside. I've been scoping out Venus and Mars and Sirius, a few other cool planets, and I saw Neptune, Uranus, and had to make sure to say that properly, obviously, for certain reasons. And I checked out a couple other stars. I can't remember the names of them off the top of my head. But one thing that I noticed, you guys, is you've got to get these telescopes in focus. There's been these video clips of what people are calling the Death Star. It looks like this like planet with a big giant hole in the middle of it moving around. And what it is the telescope is recording something that's so out of focus it's picking up the secondary mirror. I figured that out with my telescope, learning how it works and learning how to get the right focus on these objects. So, we've seen Venus, and it's the brightest star, or it's the brightest light at night now. You can definitely see it come up on the west, then it falls down shortly after. But man, it is just so cool. And when you look at these stars and you get them lined up properly, like when I was looking at Sirius, it was like this. It reminded me of like a Tesla coil or something. It was just electric. The electricity that was coming off of it was just incredible. It's fascinating. And also, one thing that is really shocking to me is I'm looking at Venus, and it looks like a partial eclipse. And it was doing this last night. Also, it's not the entire. You can't see the entire planet, and I don't get it because I've got a clear shot of it, and it literally looks like something's blocking out about a quarter of it. The top part of it, something looks like it's blocking out. So maybe it's just human error. Maybe it's a glitch on my end. Maybe it's the equipment. I don't know. But, I'm looking at, when I was looking at the moon, it was coming in beautifully, perfectly. The stars are coming in great. Mars doesn't have that weird thing where part of it's cut off. None of the other planets that I've looked at have that. So I don't know what it is. It's really strange. Maybe you guys can give me a heads up on it. Maybe there's a astronomer out there that's been seeing this strange phenomenon. Maybe it's not new. Like I said, maybe it's just a glitch on my end. But if it's not a glitch, that's really interesting. And that brings me to some articles that I want to talk to you guys about. Now, this is something about Venus here. Let me go to this real quick. Where is it? Okay, this is on BGR, and it says, WTF is that? And it's referring to this huge, like, well, let me read it to you. This is by Mike Weiner. Scientists studying Venus have just discovered something very strange. A massive structure that seems to extend almost the entire length of the planet. That's insane. Something very strange is it's a massive structure that seems to extend almost the entire length of the planet. And you guys can read this. You can see the images of it. You can see the thermal imaging. And this is from a scientific website. So this isn't from some tabloid conspiracy woo-woo site. Check it out. It's on bgr.com. And it's called There's Something Weird Happening on Venus. So I don't know what it is, but I mean, could there be something? What's blocking it? It almost seemed like there was something blocking it that was just humongous, and it's been there since it was there yesterday when I looked at Venus. Whatever it was getting the same part of the planet was being blocked off. So it's very interesting. Now, another article that I wanted to go over with you guys, so just something to think about. Another article I wanted to go over with you guys is this is on BGR also by Mike Weiner as well, and it's called Something in Space. Something in Space is Killing Off Entire Galaxies. Now, that's one thing that I find interesting is after studying a whopping 11,000 galaxies in the general vicinity of our own, scientists now believe that a process called RAM pressure stripping is leading the alien galaxies to be purged of their gas, preventing new stars from forming and leading them to sputter out faster than would be expected. During the lifetimes, galaxies can inhabit halos of different sizes, ranging from the size of our Milky Way to halos thousands times larger. And Toby Brown, the PhD candidate who headed the study, explains to the organization's website, as galaxies fall through these larger halos, essentially, the superheated intergalactic plasma between them removes the gas in a fast-acting process called RAM pressure stripping. So maybe there's some astrophysicists out there that can explain this to me or some of our audience here at Leak Project better. That's kind of interesting, though. I mean, you think about things like a planet coming close to the vicinity of ours or close enough to cause a pole shift. I mean, that's a huge deal. You think about it. But then when you find out entire galaxies are falling apart and crumbling quicker, and then that kind of makes you wonder why. Is there something more to it? Are there technologies out there in use by certain races that are just so far and above our own that they harness the universe's Akashic records or energy grid somehow to where it affects different solar systems? Because this whole thing is kind of okay, you take from over here, well, then that's going to have an effect on the other side of the spectrum as well, because everything seems to be connected at some level. So that's very interesting. I think we should keep our eyes and ears open to what's going on with the universe as well versus just here in our own backyard. It's a very interesting article. So the next article I wanted to read you guys as well was an article that came out. This was out in 2015, actually, by The Express, and you can read it on express.co.uk. This is by John Austin. It's called NASA, Earth's Magnetic Poles Are Switching with Catastrophic Consequences for Humanity. The Earth could be left powerless to defend against blasts of solar radiation from the sun for up to 200 years, leaving us at risk from skin cancer and worldwide electronic communication blackouts, NASA scientists have warned. Now let's talk about that for a minute. We see all of this stratosphere aerosol injections going on around us. Don't call them chemtrails anymore. And a lot of people speculate the reasons as to why. You read about ancient aliens and astronauts that were mining the gold for their atmosphere on their planet because the atmosphere was dying. Now, I take everything with a grain of salt, but I hear these kind of things and I see what's going on around us, and I think of films like Highlander 2, where the atmosphere was destroyed, so they had to put a dome around the planet to rebuild the atmosphere, and that just totally messed up the environment while they did that, but then the atmosphere rebuilt. We had that scare the other day with the radiation detector that I need to get replaced, that was showing levels that got up as high as 7 microsieverts per hour, which if you're getting hit with 7 microsieverts per hour, you better get out of there pretty quick, because that's extremely high doses of radiation. I mean, they should be around 0.08 to 0.1 approximately. That's a pretty low dose of radiation. That's pretty normal from what I've seen. Like right now, they're at 0.11. They were at 0.17 earlier today. But that's really nothing to be concerned about, except for the fact that it's slowly increased, I've noticed, over the past few years. So maybe all of this chemtrailing, these aerosol injections around the atmosphere, are there to block certain radiation and radioactive particles from entering our planet, essentially. I mean, maybe there's a light at the end of the tunnel. I don't know. I mean, I certainly hope that we don't need chemtrails to have a prosperous, healthy life. I mean, I hope the radiation levels aren't that bad that they're blocking radiation due to certain circumstances. Let's hope for the best on that. But let me read a little bit more about this article to you. Bruce Jakosky, Mavin principal investigator at the University of Colorado Boulder, said, when the switch does take place, the Earth's magnetic field, which prevents the sun's dangerous radiation getting through, would be neutralized for around 200 years. So imagine something like that going on, where you go outside, you're getting nailed with 10 microsieverts per hour of solar radiation. That's when you start living in domes. That's when you have to start growing food in greenhouses and just change everything. And this guy talks about how that's probably what happened to Mars. Is something happened to the atmosphere and then it got cooked by solar radiation. So what do we do to prevent that from happening? Are there things that we can do to protect our atmosphere, to, just little things? Because if we all make a little, just a little contribution essentially, or a large contribution, which would be even better, I think that's the best thing to do right now. So just little things to think about. Our atmosphere, if it gets destroyed, we could get cooked from solar radiation. We talked about Venus. Here's another thing that's quite interesting. Now, if you go to space.com, Russia, this is the article name, Russia-US mulling joint mission to Venus. This is by Mike Well, space.com. So wouldn't that be interesting if we decided to do a joint mission to Venus with Russia? Why are we deciding that now? I mean, there's a lot of speculation right now with Venus, you guys. I mean, it certainly seems like, with all of the information being presented in the white papers, what some of these astrophysicists, astronomers are coming out saying, what is this weird thing on Venus? All of a sudden we're seeing this ginormous structure that's the entire length of the planet. I mean, it doesn't just happen overnight. And if it does, what in the world would cause something like that? It's very interesting. So I hope that the mission goes well for Russia and the United States to Venus, and maybe we can start taking tours out there pretty soon. All right, now I'm going to jump over to something a little bit different, which just makes me think about kind of insider trading, essentially. And this was on Yahoo News, originally from Associated Press, January 18th. Foreclosed mall, once valued $190 million, is auctioned for $100. And I was like, wow, man, I wish I would have got in on that action. I was thinking, how big is this mall? And you read about it a little bit more. This is one of the Pittsburgh Mills. Let me read this to you real quick. A Pennsylvania mall that was foreclosed on and its owners failed to repay $143 million has been auctioned off for $100. And anybody that reads that is going to think, man, where was I during this auction? I would have given $100 for that. I mean, sure, it did. Can you imagine how long it would take to clean this thing? But so what? $100? Let's do it. Wells Fargo Bank was owed the money from a 2006 loan and submitted the winning bid for the 1.1 million square foot Galleria at Pittsburgh Mills on Wednesday. The bank was acting as trustee, the trust that bought the mall in suburban Fraser Township. Oh, it must be nice when you have all the money, you have the banks, you're the bank, right? Because you can rebuy property that was once, that maybe you sold for $190 million. Now you're buying it back for $100. Wow, it must be nice. Must be nice being an insider. Could you imagine what something like that, if you were to do something like that, if you had a business that somehow is affiliated with a $190 million transaction, and then the people that took advantage of that couldn't pay it off. Then it goes into foreclosure. And then instead of giving multitudes of people an opportunity to make a bid on that, you create this auction where the only person that knows about it is your business, and then you buy it back for $100. So you can resell it again for whatever ridiculous price you can come up with. And let's talk about what I see malls and buildings quite a bit, even here in San Antonio, that are empty. They're hollow. There's nothing in them. What could you do with 1.1 million square feet if you were to use that as like a self-sufficient society structure base? I mean, you could have greenhouses, you could have tennis courts, basketball courts, everything from sports and physical activities to educational stuff. You could be hooked up with really cool technologies and training centers and science labs and just about everything you can think of, alchemist labs and medicine and organic stuff and just a whole bunch of things. You could have your own society in one of these malls that are empty and just sitting there. I think that'd be a pretty neat story. I read something about how in India there's this community out there of like 50 different countries, of people from 50 different countries, where they're living in this really cool, clean society that's pretty technologically hip, and they're growing all organic foods and eating great and living a good lifestyle with no money, no government, no police. It's essentially don't tread on me type society. It was pretty cool. So these are kind of things that I think eventually are going to start to prosper more and sprout around the world when these big corporate governments that have fed off of just suppressing societies for so long start to shift and transition. It was nice to see things go through, pretty smooth through the inauguration. Yet now we're seeing these protests of just these paid provocative. Like when I said earlier about how you're seeing idiots doing protests in D.C., I'm not talking about the peaceful protesters. I'm talking about the ones that are throwing rocks through windows and picking up garbage cans and throwing them into the street and smacking cops while they're running off with these fake anarchy flags. You know darn well most of them are provocateurs, probably paid to do that. How can somebody get away with paying people to protest and break the law? How do people get away with that, like legally? I mean, shouldn't there be some type of, I don't know. It just seems very interesting to me because you see, and then I talked a little bit about Standing Rock and how I see peaceful protesters out there getting sprayed with pepper spray, getting tased, getting slapped around with batons and stuff like that. And people say, well, there's protesters in Standing Rock that are violent too. I'm sure there is. I'm not saying there isn't. But what I do see is peaceful protesters getting the crap smacked out of them by, freaking stormtroopers. So what do we do about this kind of stuff? I mean, do we just kind of like, oh yeah, well, it's just the way it is, corporate, they own everything. And just, hey, what's on TV? Oh yeah, let's watch a basketball game. I don't think so. I think most of you guys are starting to say, no, I'm going to talk about this. I'm not going to be a part of that system. I'm going to do everything I can to break out of that corporate matrix. And until I can completely break out of the corporate matrix, I'll be aware of it and do my part in helping others. I think helping others is key. If you can help people in any way possible and show signs of respect, you're going to get a lot more done that way than calling people names and being disrespectful towards others, even if you don't agree with them. So that's a very, very interesting thing that I just wanted to bring your attention about the bank. Now, here's another thing, too. Remember how the other day I was talking about how Kim Jong-un and his generals would be, in my opinion, very easy to take out if the Department of Defense wanted to, because they seem to make him be such a threat. Well, here's an article that just came out. North Korea's Kim Jong-un is so fat, he might have hurt his ankle again. This is by Christina Silva. This came out January 17th, International Business Times. Kim Jong-un might be experiencing health problems. He was seen walking with a limp in a state media broadcast, and it showed him. Okay. Kim has ankle problems in the past and was last seen walking with a limp in July. In the most recent video, he was seen limping on his left leg as he walked up the stairs. According to a documentary released by Korean Central TV broadcasting station, he had also seemed to be putting more weight on his right leg. So he's walking around limping because he's gained so much weight, and all of his generals are getting ready to be put into retirement facilities or shot during the firing squad because they might not bow to him enough during some type of parade or ceremony. So that was just a funny article that I wanted to share with you guys real quick. And then another thing, too, that I noticed is Obama's shortened sentence of Manning, who gave secrets to WikiLeaks. So you remember Manning, person that gave secrets to WikiLeaks and then got put in prison. And then now as Chelsea Manning had a sex change that the military paid for. And man, I'll tell you, that's got to be tough. If you really feel like you're a female in a man's body, I mean, I don't understand it, but I know there's people out there that really do feel that way. And if they can transition that in their lifetime, hey, right on, go for it. I think that he's been through a lot of crap, and I can't even understand the kind of stuff he had to go through in prison and what his family and friends talk, and people that don't know him have to say about him. So it's interesting now that he's done this, that he's basically shortened the sentence of Chelsea Manning. I wonder if that's going to be next for Julian Assange and Edward Snowden. What's next for those guys? Are their sentences going to be lifted? Are they going to be able to come back to America or leave the embassies that they're basically imprisoned in? Or are they going to get assassinated or put in some type of black ops facility that we don't even know about? I don't know. I certainly hope that people can be more expressive about their ideas and there isn't so much lockdown on alternative media, essentially. Hopefully we have the right to speak our minds, give our opinions, and find the scoop and information out there and present it for anybody to decide if they want to take advantage of that information or not. So that was just another article that I wanted to read you guys. Got a couple more here and we're done. Microsoft is begging you to ditch Windows 7 for Windows 10. Why? Why do you have to have Windows 10? Why are they making it such a big deal to have Windows 10? Couldn't you just live with Windows 7 or Windows XP? What does it really matter? And you think about it, and if you've ever studied Windows 10, that's one of the best spy tools available. It can pick up everything that you say via microphone. It can pick up your video. It can pick up keywords. All that information gets picked up and stored, and it looks for certain meta tags and certain words to red flag. So time to upgrade to Windows 10 so they can spy on you even more, ladies and gentlemen. And one more thing, too, about this whole division thing. Why are schools blacking out Trump's inaugural address? Has that been done previously or recently that you guys know of? Just seems like this divide and conquer thing. Somebody really wants to stir the pot and cause some economic collapses. And I'm sure Soros is behind much of this, but who else is behind this kind of stuff? These are the questions I ask on a daily basis, ladies and gentlemen. Question everything. I hope you have a fantastic evening. Thanks for listening. Thanks for all the comments in the comments section. I appreciate all your support. It makes it a lot easier for me to do this and be the change. Hey everybody, this is Rex Bear with Leak Project. It is January 20th, 2017. I got the Celestron NexStar telescope right outside. I've been scoping out Venus and Mars and Sirius, a few other cool planets, and I saw Neptune, Uranus, and had to make sure to say that properly, obviously, for certain reasons. And I checked out a couple other stars. I can't remember the names of them off the top of my head. But one thing that I noticed, you guys, is you've got to get these telescopes in focus. There's been these video clips of what people are calling the Death Star. It looks like this planet with a big giant hole in the middle of it moving around. And what it is the telescope is recording something that's so out of focus it's picking up the secondary mirror. I figured that out with my telescope, learning how it works and learning how to get the right focus on these objects. So, we've seen Venus, and it's the brightest star, or it's the brightest light at night now. You can definitely see it come up on the west, then it falls down shortly after. But man, it is just so cool. And when you look at these stars and you get them lined up properly, like when I was looking at Sirius, it was like this. It reminded me of like a Tesla coil or something. It was just electric. The electricity that was coming off of it was just incredible. It's fascinating. And also, one thing that is really shocking to me is I'm looking at Venus, and it looks like a partial eclipse. And it was doing this last night. Also, it's not the entire. You can't see the entire planet, and I don't get it because I've got a clear shot of it. And it literally looks like something's blocking out about a quarter of it. The top part of it, something looks like it's blocking out. So maybe it's just human error. Maybe it's a glitch on my end. Maybe it's the equipment. I don't know. But, I'm looking at, when I was looking at the moon, it was coming in beautifully, perfectly. The stars are coming in great. Mars doesn't have that weird thing where part of it's cut off. None of the other planets that I've looked at have that. So I don't know what it is. It's really strange. Maybe you guys can give me a heads up on it. Maybe there's a astronomer out there that's been seeing this strange phenomenon. Maybe it's not new. Like I said, maybe it's just a glitch on my end. But if it's not a glitch, that's really interesting. And that brings me to some articles that I want to talk to you guys about. Now, this is something about Venus here. Let me go to this real quick. Where is it? Okay, this is on BGR, and it says, WTF is that? And it's referring to this huge, well, let me read it to you. This is by Mike Weiner. Scientists studying Venus have just discovered something very strange. A massive structure that seems to extend almost the entire length